This evening's topic is going to be mindfulness of the body. And I thought I could start us off with an experiential exercise right away. So just sort of a mini meditation to begin with to help us actually settle into our body, since that's our theme. So hi, Erica. Just want to acknowledge that you're here, dear friend. So just wanted to begin with an experiential, in case Erica didn't hear us, experiential exercise of becoming embodied. And hopefully Tessa will be able to join us. I feel now that maybe I should wait one more minute, just because she had announced that she will try to sign back in. I'm just going to give it one more minute out of respect for her, since she did, show up, and then now she's having difficulty. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, I think I'm just gonna get started out of respect for everyone else. Hopefully Tessa will be able to join us again soon, and whoever else might show up can show up when they show up. So for this experiential exercise in mindfulness of the body, inviting you again to close your eyes if you feel comfortable. And if not, you can just sort of have a downward gaze on a spot in front of you, just softly gazing on that spot to still keep a sense of focus and inward direction. So just taking a seat that feels comfortable to you in this moment and helps you to be awake at the same time. And then just as your body is resting on your cushion or on your chair, see if you can allow your mind to rest on the body. And simply noticing the weight of your body as you're sitting here. Maybe getting a sense of the whole body sitting here. See if you can also feel your buttocks connecting into the chair or the couch or the seat, maybe the earth. And your hands resting in your lap or on your legs. The feet touching the ground. And perhaps even noticing the felt sense of the clothes on your skin. And is there anything else that you can notice about the body in this very moment, about your body? And you can add that to your experience in this moment. And then take a moment just to listen into the body to see if you would prefer to have your eyes remain closed for the rest of the talk, or if it would be more useful for you to open your eyes. So just taking a moment to check in with your own body to see what feels beneficial and helpful. And then also, I would like to offer an encouragement to see if you can stay embodied, meaning that you can still have a sense of the body sitting here as you're listening to the words, perhaps having a sense of your body breathing at the same time. And perhaps noticing how that can help you stay more alert, more present to the words that are being spoken. So, as we go about our daily lives, most of us tend to live in our heads, especially if we don't have a meditation practice just yet, or if we don't have a movement practice, such as perhaps Tai Chi or Qigong or yoga, which is a very embodied practice. And you've probably found this too as you've come to practice meditation and actually begin to observe the mind, that there's literally no end to the activity in the mind. So, what mindfulness can do for us is it can help us become aware of the ever present thoughts connected to planning, planning your day, remembering, having a memory, or forecasting into the future about what's to happen. And this is not to say that, of course, we have to plan, for example, our work day, or sometimes there's a pleasant memory, maybe about an experience with a friend or a family member that we were having. It's not to say that there's anything wrong with it, but it's really apparent just how much our life is occupied with producing thoughts in our minds. It really becomes noticeable and apparent when you sit down in meditation and try to quiet your mind, just how much we are bombarded with thoughts, practically moment by moment. And for some of us, it's actually not so much thoughts. For some of us, it might be actually more images or pictures that come to mind, that there's a sort of constant bombardment of something visually going on in the mind. And so, there might be thoughts, there might be pictures, there might be images, but just enough is to say that the mind is really active all the time, pretty much, which we can gain an understanding of when we establish a meditation practice. And so when we sit down in meditation, what we also most likely will become aware of is that we often react to external experiences. So perhaps if you were watching the news tonight and there might have been some upsetting pictures or reporting, maybe you had a conversation today that might have been triggering with a coworker or friend or family member. When you pay attention, you become aware that we often react to these external experiences that we're having with fear, with anger, with frustration, maybe with irritation, sometimes even going as far as feeling a sense of hatred or ill will towards the person that was offending us in whatever way or however we are perceiving it. So without a mindfulness practice, we can even create harm for ourselves and others when we act out of fear, anger, or ill will, or even hatred. So the beauty of beginning or having a mindfulness meditation practice is that we can learn how anger, frustration, fear, and other challenging emotions express themselves in the body. So instead of getting caught in stories that we might be spinning about how we were wronged by this person or how horrible the state of the world is, we can simply go inside and we can actually notice what these emotions feel like in the body. So we can learn to practice not fueling angry or fearful thoughts so that then they don't lead to harmful actions, maybe judgments towards ourselves of, oh my God, how could I have done that? Or, that was terrible what this person did to me. We can actually bring it inside into our body and just begin to recognize it, to allow it to be there, and then also to investigate the emotions or whatever has risen up in the body, and take, a closer look, take closer attention. So we can do this by simply noticing, oh, anger feels like this in the body, or fear, irritation, maybe sleepiness or exhaustion feel like that. And perhaps accompanying these emotions that you get a felt sense of in the body, you'll notice that perhaps there is tightness in the shoulders or a heaviness in the chest, maybe a churning in the belly, or maybe the heart is beating fast or feeling heavy and constricted, or maybe you feel a sense of heat in the face accompanying these emotions when you pay attention to how they actually express themselves in the body. So when we begin to notice these sensations in the body that accompany strong emotions, it actually helps us to create a kind of spaciousness in the mind. So there's actually been research done is that when you feel a very strong emotion, and if you can simply notice, with one word even, anger or frustration or irritation, it already becomes a lot less likely that you will actually act out of the space of anger by simply noting what is present in your mind or what is present in the body. You could notice anger or fear, or you could notice, tightness, or constriction. And it's already creating some spaciousness in the mind in that way. And in addition to that, you can even add an attitude of curiosity about what arises in the body. And as you do so, for example, as you notice, okay, anger is really present in me right now, and let me take a look. How does that actually express itself in the body? Oh, I can feel my heart is really racing, or I feel heat in the chest, or my face is just really getting really tense and crunched up. So adding this attitude of curiosity about what's present, if you notice it just even for a little while, you might even notice become less, or you might notice shift into something else. Maybe, I think we've often experienced that, all of us, you're so angry one moment and you're really identified with your anger. And then maybe you wake up the next morning and miraculously, the anger is completely gone, and now you're feeling calm and composed and peaceful. And if you sit down in meditation, you can actually notice these shifts happening a lot sooner. In other words, you might be aware of, sleepiness or heaviness in the body is present. And as you stay connected to what it actually feels like and bring a sense of curiosity, you might actually notice that the heaviness maybe shift into something else in the body. So just bringing that sense of curiosity and alertness in the mind really connects us to this teaching that nothing that we ever experience in the body or mind stays around forever. As a matter of fact, as Grace always reminds me, or has reminded me many times in the past, if you don't fuel the emotion that's present or the thought that's present, I think she said it goes away within about a minute and a half. It never stays along for a very, very long time. So it's really important, though, as you maybe establish a regular meditation practice, and you notice emotions or you notice sensations in the body, that it's quite possible, especially if you extend your meditation time. Maybe in the beginning, it's just, okay, let me sit here for 5 minutes, or let me sit here for 10 minutes. But if you extend the amount of meditation, sometimes people even sit for half an hour or longer, and there will be a lot happening in the body. There'll be a lot happening and going through the mind. And sometimes what can arise in the body or mind can reach a level where it feels overwhelming, or where you feel like, okay, I'm not ready to be present for this. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I'm feeling swept away by this emotion right now. I can't sit with this. And it's really been recognized these days in the meditation teaching community that in the olden days, a meditation teacher might have told you, okay, you're just going to sit there like a rock, and no matter what comes into your mind, you're just going to sit through it. You're just going to feel it, and it's going to be okay. And nowadays, with a more trauma-informed practice that we are becoming aware of, not just in the mental health community, but also in the mindfulness meditation community, it's really recognized when you're experiencing something in meditation that feels overwhelming or overpowering, that you try to not stick with it, that it's a lot better to come out of the experience. For example, what you could do, you could open your eyes, you could reorient yourself in the room. You might even want to count objects in the room or notice how many shapes are in the room or what colors. And basically, it just helps you become centered again in the present moment, because likely that sense of overwhelm has reminded you of something, maybe a memory that was traumatizing. And so if you stay in that traumatizing memory, you're actually not present for your meditation practice. So it's really important that if there's a sense of overwhelm, you open your eyes either, or maybe you'll go, practice walking meditation. Another thing that you could also do before you decide to get up, you could maybe infuse your practice with a compassion practice. So, for example, one thing that you might do, you might place a hand on your heart or a hand on the belly or wherever else in your body you're feeling that overwhelm. And you can perhaps simply even drop in the words, "May I hold this difficulty with compassion," or "May I hold this suffering with great compassion." So you can sort of see what works best for yourself when you're feeling a sense of overwhelm in meditation. What would help you in this moment to resource yourself, to help yourself get embodied and centered again in the present moment. So just wanted to add that of how that might come up in our meditation practice as well, the sense of overwhelm and how to work with it skillfully in meditation. So just wanted to give a pause for a moment just to take in what's already been said so far. And we just take a moment to take a couple of breaths together before I continue. And again, if you wish to have your eyes closed or open, just taking a moment to check in with yourself, what feels beneficial in this moment for the next several minutes of the talk. So the Buddha actually taught that we can become fully enlightened only by practicing mindfulness of the body alone. So that's a kind of a very powerful statement, and it shows you just how important it is to become embodied in meditation and not to stay centered in the head, but really inhabit your body fully and see what's present in the body as you sit down in your meditation practice. So, like I've already mentioned, when we place our attention on the body, we begin to notice what is actually present in it. And oftentimes, for a lot of people, including myself, this includes the presence of pain in the body. And as you take your seat in meditation and become curious not only about what's present and maybe finding that there's areas in the body that feel painful or where there's a sense of discomfort, what you might also begin to notice as you keep sitting in meditation is, oh, every time that I feel like I want to move my body or shift my posture in any way is because there's a sense of discomfort or pain in the body. And I think that's pretty much also true in daily life. If you really begin to pay attention of why you move, unless you're moving because you have to drive your car to a meeting or you're, taking a walk in nature, maybe I encourage you to pay attention when you actually move, like as you're sitting here. Why is it that you feel called to move, or why is it that you feel that you want to adjust your posture. And oftentimes it is because there's a sense of discomfort, there's a sense of dis-ease in the body. And so, as a famous monk, Buddhist monk once said, his name is Bhikkhu Analayo, he said that this body is painful. And simply that recognition that pain is a natural part of being in a body, and that we can't really avoid experiencing pain and discomfort in the body, I think is an important teaching in this practice. So I wanted to take the next few minutes to engage us in another experiential practice together. So again, if you would like to close your eyes for this, or keep the eyes slightly downcast so that you can be focusing still inwards onto your own body. So see if you can notice a place where pain or discomfort might be present in the body. What are the actual sensations that are present in what you label as pain or discomfort? Maybe there's a sense of tightness or pressure, throbbing, heat, perhaps pulsing. So notice what's true for you. And also notice how your mind reacts to the presence of pain or discomfort. Is there a desire for the pain to go away? Is there fear? And then see for yourself what you sense the most compassionate response would be in this moment that you can give to the presence of pain or discomfort. Does it feel useful to mindfully adjust your posture? Or would it be beneficial not to move and to notice what happens when you stay with the painful sensations? Do they shift in any way? Do they become stronger? Do they subside? And now shifting away from a painful or discomforting part in the body, see if you can bring your attention to the place in the body that feels free from pain or discomfort. And what do you sense in that body part? Perhaps lightness, coolness, openness, flow. Just sense what's true for you. And then can you hold space for both what feels painful or discomforting, and also at the same time for what feels pain-free, or where there's a sense of ease in the body? Not wishing for the experience to be otherwise, but simply being present for it with a loving and kind attention, without judgment. When you feel ready, we're going to bring this particular exercise to an end. So just maybe taking another moment if you would like to complete the experience that you're feeling. Or perhaps you need still some more time to stay in it, and that's fine. And so, as the talk is coming to an end, I just wanted to share one more aspect of the body that the Buddha actually instructed his disciples, so his monastic community, to recollect and even recite on a daily basis. So there's these 5 recollection that he told his monks and nuns to actually recite out loud every day. And 3 of them pertain to the body. So I'd like to share them with you this evening. And so the first one is, I am of the nature to age. I have not gone beyond aging. I am of the nature to sicken. I have not gone beyond sickness. I am of the nature to die. I have not gone beyond dying. So really beginning to understand the nature of this body that we're living in, that it's subject to aging, sickness, and death, can help us free our mind of what the Buddha actually referred to as the 3 poisons, which are the poison of greed, hatred, and delusion. So basically, all the messages that we're getting in society is that our body should be a certain way, that it should look a certain way, that it should have a certain shape, that it should not be an old body, it should be of a certain skin color or skin tone. And so it constantly gives the message that, something is wrong with our bodies, and it can actually create a lot of greed to make the body look different, because that's what the message is that we're bombarded with, to see a little wrinkle in the face and feel, okay, I'm going to have to get these creams, or I'm going to have to get Botox, or whatever it is. So there's a whole lot of grief that can arise because of that. And it can also lead to the poison of hatred, where we actually turn against ourselves and begin to hate our own body because it doesn't reflect the message that it should be. Like I said already, it should be a certain shape, it should be a certain size, it should be a certain color. So then it becomes reflected into feeling like there's something deeply wrong with us for looking the way we do. And And so there can be a lot of delusion also around the body because of these messages that we've been given, that we feel like our body should stay forever young, or that we should just not even ever think about death, that it's not okay to prepare for the dying process, or to ever see a dying body. I mean, in most of our spiritual traditions or religions, we even put makeup on the body, to cover up of how the body might actually look like in the dying process, or when it's already dead. So this recollection about the body, that it's subject to aging, sickness, and death, really helps us come in alignment with reality and break through delusion. So it also really helps us to not waste our whole of our life energy on trying to make the body something it's not, or trying to ignore what the body will be, and instead to really concentrate our life force on what most matters in our lives. And I think for most spiritual practices, it is true that they ask us to cultivate compassion. They ask us to cultivate gratitude, wisdom, a peaceful heart and mind. And in Buddhism in particular, but also Hinduism, it really asks us to live a life of ahimsa, which is actually a Sanskrit word, one of the old Indian languages. And it refers to this ancient Indian principle of practicing nonviolence towards all living beings. So it's a key virtue in both Buddhism and Hinduism. So I'm hoping that we can all really center our lives on what really matters, in breaking through and breaking free of this greed, hatred, and delusion that I was just talking about as it relates to the body. So I'm just gonna become silent for a moment and let the words settle, and then just ring the bell in a second to signal the end of the talk. Thank you for your attention, and thank you for your practice. Z has graciously agreed to guide us through some embodied movement this evening, so I'm going to turn it over to them at this moment. Thank you.
So if you would like to stay sitting, feel free. If you're lying down, you can try to remain lying down if your body needs that. I'm going to stand, but I will give options for sitting as well. So do what suits you best. And I thought we'd begin today just by revisiting the connection between the body and the breath. And so let's start by just placing a hand on the belly. And I invite you to close your eyes. And if that doesn't work for you, as Bettina's been saying, just gaze down. And just feel the breath swelling out underneath the palm of your hand. As you breathe in, you can feel the breath filling into the belly. or perhaps you don't, but we can intend to fill the breath into the belly. And just maybe feeling the way the walls of the belly expand with the fullness of the inhale. And you might also notice how the mind feels from the inhale, how the energy is impacted by this full breath in. And then maybe noticing the exhale, the belly shrinking, seeing if there's a sense of relaxation, letting go. And noticing not the concept of it, but the actual experience in the belly of the exhale, the sensation. And perhaps too noticing the mood or the mindset or the emotional quality that might come with the exhale. Maybe there's energy with the inhale. Maybe there's a feeling of ease with the exhale. Or not. There's no right or wrong. It's so beautiful about this practice is you can't do it wrong. All you have to do is know what's true for you. Then we'll place the other hand on the chest and see if we can deepen the breath so that it moves from the belly all the way up to the chest. Filling the lungs from bottom to top and feeling the sensations associated with this longer, deeper, fuller breath. And see if you can keep your awareness on the breath and just lift the arms up into the air. If your feet are touching the ground, you can really sink your feet down and maybe use that to lift up a little bit taller. And then stay connected to the sensation of the breath rolling from the belly to the chest. And then just reach up through the fingertips as you inhale. And as you exhale, just let go of the reach, almost like you're exaggerating the natural flow of breath, expanding and releasing. See if the breath moves the body. And see if you can pay attention to the breath from the beginning to the end, using the sensation to keep your attention. Being curious about where the body breathes. And then we're going to let the knees bend if you're standing. If you're sitting, you might come more toward the front of your seat and still have the knees bent. And then we're just going to hang over our bent legs. You can let the arms dangle down toward the ground. And see if you can let go of your head more completely. And continue to try to breathe just as deeply and fully. And noticing if there's a different placement of the breath. Notice the experience of the breath with the body in this position. Still breathing as deeply in as you can and letting it all go on the exhale. Feeling it in the body. And then slowly roll yourself up, reaching the arms up one more time. Exhale the arms down. And then we're going to step the left foot back. And if you're sitting, you can, hopefully you're on the edge of your seat already, just extend the right foot forward. So we all have the right foot forward and the left foot back. And then we're going to inhale the arms up again. And then exhale and fold over that right leg. Trying to keep the right leg straight. Let go of the head. And then completely release all the air out on your exhale and surrender the weight of your torso with gravity. So really just see if you're holding on or holding back and feel into the body for any tension and try to let it go. And then we can just notice the sensation of the stretch. Maybe as Bettina was talking about before, there's an unpleasant sensation. And maybe we can just let the unpleasantness be there and feel it fully and breathe deeply in and out. And almost imagine that there's a merging of the breath with the sensation, even though the sensation is probably nowhere near your lungs. And then if you're standing, you can bend your back knee, bend your front knee, roll yourself up, and we'll switch the legs. Left foot in front, right foot behind. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, folding over the left leg. And at some point, you're going to come up against your comfort zone, and the body may resist. So just pay attention and see if there is resistance to really relaxing into the stretch because of the sensation and kind of reaching your edge. And then just see if you can focus on the breath again, breathing deeply in and deeply out, and maybe reconnecting with that sense of ease and relaxation on the exhale, and seeing if the body can let go, seeing if it doesn't want to, and being with that, and just be curious what that feels like. Not to try to understand it, figure it out, evaluate it, analyze it, just the experience of it. How does it feel to let go or to not let go? How does it feel to stretch and to feel the sensation of the stretch? How does it feel to breathe and to be breathing with the stretch? then if you're standing, the back knee can bend, the front knee can bend. We'll roll up, step the feet together, inhale the arms up, exhale the hands together at the heart. And then mindfully moving back to your seat if you're standing, perhaps feeling the feet touching the ground as you return to your meditation posture.
So wanted to offer a body scan for us this evening. And so before I begin, I wanted to just say that if you prefer in this moment to sit in a seat or maybe even lie down in a way that feels more comfortable, that's perfectly okay. If you want to lean back or maybe have your feet stretched out, your legs stretched out on the couch, but just taking a posture, that you can be in for a while, with a sense of comfort, but still a way that allows you to stay alert enough to not fall asleep during the practice. Although if that happens, that is obviously what the body needs in this moment, but at least bringing the attention to stay present for the whole body scan. I think everybody is or has begun to settle into the posture that feels right to them at this moment. So it's useful to close your eyes if that feels right to you. If not, again, just an invitation to keep them open in a way that serves you. And then simply begin by inviting your whole body, your whole self into the space. However you are, whatever this day brought you, however it feels in this moment, see if you can invite in a gentle presence that can hold space for it all. And I invite us all to take a few long, deep, and full breaths, evenly breathing in and evenly breathing out. So that means matching the in breath, the length of the in breath, with the length of the out breath. So we're going to do this a few rounds together. Just helping our nervous system to calm with these long in breaths and long out breaths. And then ultimately you can let go of the efforting of arranging your breath in this way and just let it come into its own natural rhythm. And as you do so, see if you can guide your awareness into the heart, the spiritual heart in the center of your chest. And then imagining that you're gently breathing in and out of the heart. Slowly letting the breaths penetrate to the inside of the heart, nourishing the heart from within. And imagining that you're sending these gentle breaths out to your entire body, feeling the body nourished by these healing breaths. And you might wish to guide the breath into places that feel hurt, tight, tense, stiff, or maybe scared, where you sense that a loving breath is needed. And then in this moment, also direct the attention to the earth you're sitting on or lying on. And imagine yourself being held by the earth. And allow your body to relax into the safe embrace of the earth. So from this place, I'll guide us through a body scan from the soles of the feet up to the crown of the head. And we'll begin in our left foot, feeling the sole of the foot, the top of the foot, the big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe. Feeling the left ankle, the calf, the shin. Noticing the left knee, the upper leg, front, sides, and back. Feeling the left buttock, noticing the left hip. And then shifting the awareness over to the right side. So bring your attention into your right foot, feeling the sole of the foot, the top of the foot, the right big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, fifth toe. Being aware of the right ankle, calf, shin, your right knee, upper leg, front, back, and sides. Noticing your right buttock, your right hip, and then moving your attention into the pelvis, up into the belly, the ribs, and the whole rib cage. the chest, left shoulder blade, down the left upper arm, the elbow, lower arm, left wrist, left thumb, pointer finger, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky finger. And then moving over to the right shoulder blade, down the right upper arm, your elbow, lower arm, your right thumb, pointer finger, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky finger. And then we'll move down our back from the top of the back to the mid back, into the lower back, getting a sense of the whole spine. Moving up the spine to come into the neck, feeling the front of the neck, the sides of the neck, back of the neck. Noticing the chin, the jaw, lower lip, upper lip. Getting a sense of the teeth in the mouth, the tongue, the gums, and coming up into the nose, maybe feeling that space in each nostril, left nostril, right nostril, coming up into the left eye, the right eye, left brow, right brow, the space in between the eyebrows, up into the forehead, and all the way up to the crown of the head. And then see if you can sense just the front of the whole body. And then the back of the whole body. Just the left side of the body now. Then the right side. And then the whole body all together. Feeling your whole body. And then we'll bring this body scan to an end, and I invite you to join me in a visualization exercise, still staying deeply connected within your own body. So I'm going to be mentioning a few images that you can bring to mind, and just let them arise in whatever way they wish to arise, not forcing anything or efforting. Just see what comes up as I go through these different visuals. The sun rising over a mountain. Winds across the sea. a bird soaring over a green, lush valley. A temple at dawn. Elephants walking in a savanna. Monkeys jumping from tree to tree. A holy man walking in the desert. The sun setting at the ocean. Smiling Buddha. Full moon shining onto a lake. The full moon shining into your heart. And allow your whole body to be bathed in the full moonlight and receive the healing energies of the moon, resting deeply and profoundly. And we're just gonna be in this experience for another 2 minutes or so. So just allow yourself to deepen into the experience a little bit longer until I ring the bell again. So today's already the third night together that we're practicing together. So I thought this would be a nice opportunity or a good time for a question and answer session. And so we have 45 minutes for this, or almost 45 minutes, so we can really take our time. Maybe you've thought about a question that you wanted to ask, or some arose in the practice in the first hour today. And just wanted to say that even this type of session can become part of our mindfulness practice, and it can be actually lovely to have someone come forward and raise a question, and then for us to receive the question first of all as a community. So maybe just allow for a moment to let the question to settle before I begin to attempt to answer it. And in an ideal setting, I would actually prefer not to be the only one answering the question. I would love to call on the wisdom of the community. However, for the purposes of my practicum, it's supposed to be me attempting to answer the question, which is not my preference, but um, this is how it needs to be this time around. So yeah, I'm just gonna mute myself, and maybe we can just all take a moment again to just come together as a community for the second hour, since that's the hour that's more focused on the community. And then whenever somebody feels ready, go ahead and ask your question.
So my question is, because this is my experience pretty often, that as soon as I start quieting down, I start dreaming. I just start being asleep. And I I mean, I do know that one thing you can do is stand up at those points and meditate standing, but I just was wondering if there's any teaching or advice about staying alert, even in this much quieter um, place.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Ava, for raising that question. And I have a sense that sleepiness is probably a phenomena that would come up for a lot of us when we sit down in meditation, because we live in such a busy world where so many things are required for us, be it family obligations or work obligations. And it's actually very common that when we sit down in meditation, we take a seat and become quiet. It just basically, in this crazy, busy world, is kind of a signal to the body, oh, it's time to rest. It's time to go to sleep, because we either know just to be really, really super busy, or then when we sit down and quiet ourselves, we don't actually really know anything else but to go to sleep if we're just sitting there meditating, unless we're reading a book or we're writing or we're watching TV, something that keeps our minds engaged. So I'm really glad you raised that question. And it really depends so much. There's actually teachers that say, sit down in meditation, and especially when you're on a retreat or when you're just coming into a more prolonged practice in the beginning, you might feel really sleepy. And sometimes the instruction can actually be, well, if your body is sleepy, it probably needs to rest, just let it go to sleep. But if you have just this precious time carved out for yourself in meditation, be it 15 minutes or half an hour, there's definitely some things that you can try Um, sometimes it can be really helpful to take a few deeper breaths through the body to really energize the body again, and basically signal it that it's being energized. It's time to be still awake even though you're sitting in silence. And oftentimes what I do when I become really sleepy, I might just momentarily come out of my stillness posture. What's really helpful is to actually raise your hands over your head, kind of like this, because it opens the chest area and it brings some energy into the chest. Or even raising your arms overhead, kind of like Z did for us earlier in our movement practice, can also give some energy to the body. Um, and for some of us, like I said, living in such a busy world and maybe not being used to just sitting quietly, and the mind maybe being so busy, although in your situation it was more like you sit down and you go dream. But basically for both, for someone feeling like, okay, I'm just gonna go to sleep, or I'm just gonna dream, or my mind is too busy, I think that's why Thich Nhat Hanh so often focuses on walking meditation, that it might not be conducive in the beginning to actually just sit down and try to come into stillness, that it might be really beneficial, even just in the room, to practice a mindful meditation, maybe for about 5 minutes before you actually sit down in your meditation posture. So I'm just curious, Ava, after Z led the mindful movement this evening, was it still the same experience for you, that you basically sat down and then right away you felt, okay, here it comes, here come the dreams? Or what was it like for you this evening?
So I think for a little while after the movement, I was more alert.
Mm-hmm.
But then I get dreamy again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and truly I did go to bed too late last night. I mean, that is
Mm-hmm.
a little part of the problem, but and that's just exacerbated it a little today. But this is my MO, is to just start having dream imagery as soon
Mm-hmm.
as I. So, and another thing, so there's putting your hands up or doing this or doing
Mm-hmm.
walking meditation, but actually I keep closing my eyes for this meditation, and maybe what I should do is not close my
Mm-hmm.
eyes
Mm-hmm.
and just do the sort of downward gaze.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes when you go into this dream state that you're describing, it can actually be really helpful not only to keep the eyes open, but to actually really open them wide and
Mm,
actually look up towards the ceiling, because that's also, and maybe even exacerbate, the way that the eyes are open, to really stretch them wide open. That can also help.
okay.
But I think from a Buddhist mindfulness perspective, what's really important is also to perhaps get a sense of the attitude of the mind that you're bringing to this experience of becoming really sleepy or drowsy or dreamlike. To just observe, how is my mind reacting to the sleepiness? Is there a sense of aversion or judgment?
Oh no.
No, okay,
It's like,
not.
let's keep going here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that might just really be also just a sign, it's kind of listening to your body, to really sensing, oh, I'm really exhausted, or I'm really tired, and to
Mhm.
really honor that experience. What you might want to do is, and you can probably do this with your eyes open, just to really sense, where do I feel this sleepiness in the body? Because that in itself, by noticing, okay, what does it actually feel like to be in a dreamlike state? How does it feel in the mind? Does it feel contracting? Does it bring up any sensations in the body? And that in itself can actually be energizing.
Right.
You just focus the mind in that way. So those might be some things to try, but ultimately, it's not so much about changing your experience, but rather being with what is and investigating it inside of you. And I think that's really where the key lies in terms of the mindfulness practice. It's not about changing the experience that we're having, but to notice what attitude do I bring to the practice. And maybe there's wisdom, in what your body is telling you. Oh, maybe, my days are really long and I need to see if I can bring in some more sleep into my night. And that would be the compassionate thing to do. So there's really a whole lot of listening, like, in yoga, we practice yoga together. The idea is to really deeply listen to the body and listen to the messages that it wants to give us. So maybe you can take it a little bit deeper into the body and really listen to the messages that the body is giving you. And like we talked about in the first night, during the first night, what would then be the skillful or compassionate response, if your body is consistently telling you, I'm really sleepy. you know. So I don't know if that's helpful, but
Yes, thank you.
okay. Thank you so much for asking.
So, Bettina, we have an idea of mindfulness practice bringing us to happiness and peace of mind and all the things that we want from the mindfulness practice. But can you say something about sort of the opposite, how things like happiness and peace of mind can create conditions for mindfulness to arise? And how we can sort of create conditions in our life that makes it possible for mindfulness to more easily arise.
So I want to check with you, Bob, to make sure that I'm really understanding the question. So you're raising a question around how we can cultivate happiness to bring on mindfulness in our being. I'm not sure that I'm yet understanding the question.
What I'm asking is that we often think of being mindful and it becomes kind of effortful.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it is possible to create conditions for mindfulness to arise more naturally.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm really trying to
Mm-hmm.
ask about. How can, in other words, thinking about mindfulness in a broader sense of how we create an environment for mindfulness to be more readily arising in our life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, thank you for asking that. I'm going to attempt to answer it at least partly. And yeah, we'll see. I would like to offer that the heart practices of Buddhism, and in particular, the heart practices of loving kindness and compassion that we're actually covering later on in this course, are really conducive to bringing on a deeper sense of mindfulness. And so, with loving kindness practices, I don't want to give too much away, but just really in loving kindness practices, we're basically receiving everything with a loving intention, a loving attention into our body and mind, whatever is present. And we're cultivating a sense of loving attention to whatever arises. Um, Loving kindness practice is really also considered a concentration practice that can get us more deeply into a state of mindfulness by, for example, beginning with ourselves, as it's normally suggested in Buddhist meditation practice, by just directing a loving attention to ourself, to our body, to our mind, to our heart, to our spirit, can certainly make us our whole being more conducive towards becoming more mindful. to a state also in our daily lives. And I think all the hard practices, as you know, in particular compassion practices, actively cultivating compassion within ourselves, kind of like what Ava was addressing, like when she feels really sleepy or in a dreamlike state, you know, she can actively cultivate compassion for her body, and just recognizing that her body is really tired or really exhausted, or this is what happens when she sits down in meditation. She goes into a dreamlike state. And if she can infuse that experience with a loving attention, I think that is very much fostering and cultivating a compassionate state, which also is very conducive to being mindful. So I think that listening to our bodies and mind on a regular basis and being loving towards it and being loving towards others, being compassionate with ourselves, being compassionate with others, is really kind of a accompaniment to mindfulness, and can also create a state of mindfulness in ourselves, at least from my experience. Um, but I'm not really sure if that answers your question. So can you maybe say a little bit, Bob, about how you have practiced with this yourself to give more of a sense?
Well, what you were speaking of with metta and those kinds of practices, that's very much a part of it. And also, I think I have found for mindfulness to be possible, particularly the more you kind of let go with trying to achieve something with the meditation practice, but just kind of allow the practice just to find its own place and have a sense of just sort of being with what is, rather than always trying to change what is into something else, just kind of being with what is. And that's the same way. That relaxation from that also creates an environment where mindfulness can arise, I find, more easily than when the practice becomes more effortful.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point, to let go of efforting and just to really be present to what wants to arise. And when you were saying that just now, I was also reminded that something that's really important for mindfulness to be able to just sort of come about naturally is to really have a sense of safety. So to practice in an environment that feels safe is really conducive to cultivating mindfulness. So for example, if you came to this space, to this Zoom room, and you weren't really feeling very comfortable around the people in the room, or maybe people are making comments that are disturbing to your mind, or that are not really conducive to you settling into a space with comfort and with a sense of safety. Because I find that, or I feel that for us to really be able to let go and to be effortless, there has to be a sense of at least feeling safe enough in the space in order for our mindfulness to arise. And I find that actually to be very important. And Z and I had a conversation around that the other day, and they rightfully mentioned that, you know, in the time of the Buddha, in the community that the Buddha created with the monks and nuns that he invited into his practice center, or to, well, they weren't really centers, they practice out in the forest. But, you know, he invited everyone to become part of the Sangha, no matter what caste they were from, you know. He invited women, which was really radical for the time. So he invited everyone to join and practice together. And he told everyone that everyone was capable to reach enlightenment, to become fully awake. And so he created also these precepts, sort of these practice guidelines that everyone had to practice around, not to harm one another, not to kill one another, to use loving speech with one another and so forth. And I think that's really important to have that in place in a community to make it conducive to practicing mindfulness together. So yes, it's about our individual practice, but there's these 3 refuges in Buddhism that the Buddha wanted us to take refuge in, and that's the Buddha, which can also be just basically referred to as awareness itself, the Dharma, the teachings, and then also the Sangha, which is the community coming together and practicing together. So it's about also how do we create a community that allows us to cultivate mindfulness together, not just in our own individual practice, but when we practice as a community. So that just came to my mind when you were speaking about making it effortless or less effortful. Is there anything you would like to add to that? Like to have.
I think that covers it pretty well.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, dear Grace. Yes. Yes. Oh,
You put yourself back on mute, Grace.
yeah, you're back on mute, Grace. No, we can't. Oh,
Now?
yes,
Okay.
here we
I'm
are.
sorry, I'm doing this from my phone. We were having problems with my laptop, but anyway, I wanted to thank you very much for those beautiful visualizations. I was thinking, this is such a wonderful experience and it's so accessible that it really should be part of my daily practice, just to go somewhere in nature for a little bit. And it's just really very stirring in a relaxing way. And I appreciated that. The other thing is, in reference what Bob was saying, personally, and it may not work for everyone, but I find that it's very helpful to have a gratitude practice. That I find that very conducive to being mindful and more focused and present. But again, that's that's what works for me. I was just wanted to share that. And then the question I had for you, Bettina, was is it possible to go phase into and out of mindfulness and into and out of meditation and go back and forth? I was thinking of the analogy of like learning a piano piece per se, where it requires a lot of mindfulness when you are learning it. But then you get to the point where you've become skilled enough that it's not forced. And so you're just truly experiencing what is, which may not even be that piano piece. So I was just wondering if that makes sense, being able to phase in and out of those states. Thank you.
Thank you so much for raising that, Grace. And I think that's a really good point. And the idea is actually not, like Bob already said, to just keep efforting or to keep maybe, even thinking, okay, so what else should I become aware of now? And I think oftentimes that can be confusing, that students feel, okay, so there's the breath, there's the body sensations. And so these are just sort of instructions in the beginning so that you get a sense of all the different things that one could become mindfulness, and also to help you really build concentration so that you're really becoming more focused in an effortless way and present with what is here, and not just, like as I said earlier, if we go about our daily lives, a lot of the times we're just completely lost in thought, and we're not even embodied in any way or know what's in front of our noses. So these are all just techniques in the beginning that help us become more mindful of what is actually here, sounds or sensations or thoughts or images. Like you said, maybe something visual that comes to mind, or a feeling, an emotion. And at some point, if you practice on a regular basis, you will most likely find it more easy to just sort of drop into a more spacious state where everything falls away and there's just the spaciousness of the mind, or you feel the mind expanding. You might feel the presence of the body, but you're not fine tuning into what's going on here, what's going on there, but you're just really opening up the awareness and feel the spaciousness, like it's often done in Zen Buddhism, for example. And so one moment you might find yourself feeling really spacious and open, and it feels really quiet in the body. It feels really quiet in the mind. And then boop, all of a sudden there is out of nowhere, maybe a sense of anger arises, or a sense of fear arises, or irritation arises. And in those moments, it might become beneficial to kind of put the lens in a little bit closer again and see, oh, let me take a look at that. I've recognized fear, I've recognized anger. Let me allow this to be here. Let me invite this into my meditation practice, and maybe invest it a little bit. How does it actually manifest in the body? And how does it shift? Does it stay? Does it go away? That might be really beneficial when something comes up out of the spaciousness. And then when you've investigated it long enough, when you feel like, okay, this is sort of fading away or it's shifting into something else, let me just come back to the breath. My mind is ready to be spacious again and open. So I think that kind of describes what you were saying. Is it possible to be, sort of keenly mindful and then maybe come out of the direct mindfulness again and open up into a spaciousness? Is that where you were kind of thinking, or do you mean something else?
No, that's pretty close. It just seems like they can work with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not, at exactly the same time, but they can phase into and out of each other.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think it's also really important to know that sometimes if we are just practicing with a spaciousness, we might be closing ourselves off to important information or insights that we can gain through paying attention to body sensations or paying attention to emotions. And then we could also possibly get stuck in overdoing that. So it's kind of like finding the right balance as time moves on, and as you become more, sort of more refined in your meditation practice. And I think that there's also, depending on the day, if you've practiced for a while, you might sit down with the intention, okay, today I just really want to practice being spacious in the mind and in the body. And then there's other times where you feel like you're sitting down and you feel like, okay, today I was really triggered, and I really want to maybe take a look in meditation of what was really going on, not so much in the mind, but investigating it in the body. What does it actually feel like? When I was feeling so angry or irritated, what does it actually feel like in the body? Because it also can help us come to a place of concentration and centeredness when we just drop when we drop the awareness into the body to investigate in that way. So I think both are possible, and one day might be more useful for for spaciousness, and another day might be more useful to just being sort of fine tuning the awareness in the body and mind. So I hope that was helpful.
Yes, it was, Bettina. Thank you. It seems like in some ways they support each other.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you so much for asking.
And I'm just loving this whole practice tonight. It's really very on point for me. My mind is always ready to jump in and start working, and take over everything and start running stuff. So my goal at the outset of meditation is relaxing, breathing, maybe going into an inner sanctuary. I've kind of created a lovely place to go and sit within myself and to try to put the mind to sleep or on quiet mode so I can just be in sensation and feeling. And but my question is, when you use phrases such as, well, let's take a look at that, this seems to be a bit of a danger zone for me, because as soon as I feel I might be doing that, the mind goes, oh, something for me to do, excellent. um, you know so I would appreciate the approach, your words on the approach to investigation, curiosity, while not having the mind jump in and take over. Or tools to say, oh, no, you don't. Over here with you. I'm over here. So this is an ongoing work for me. So
Yeah, I think there's maybe a couple of things to say, and thank you, because I'm sure that you're not the only one that happens to. I think that happens to most of us in meditation practice. But I would like to say from the onstart is that maybe not to make the mind into an enemy, you know, maybe noticing if you're already coming to the meditation with an attitude, okay, mind and thoughts, you're going to go over here, you're going to stay over there, and let me just be here and meditate, so
good point.
yeah. To recognize that, this body and mind, this is all together, and to recognize the mind is actually in the body, if you so it's part of this whole experience. So to not maybe send it a message that it's not okay to be here as you sit in meditation. And I totally what you're saying when you hear the word investigation. Certainly in our society, oh, investigate, that means I'm going to think about it, I'm going to analyze it. And so here, what's meant by investigation is not at all analyzing or bringing the mind in, as much as to really look at, okay, if there is, let's say there's a challenging emotion that you're experiencing, what does it actually feel like in the body? Kind of like we practiced this evening a little bit when I was giving the talk, and I asked us to drop into the body as it related to pain. So for example, that, if you experience something that you call pain, well, the mind become really active and think, oh, is this pain going to be here from now on for the rest of my life? I know that I certainly experienced that recently when I had a sort of an onslaught of sciatica coming on, and my mind became really active and thought, okay, sciatica, why is this here? I've heard this is maybe psychosomatic, and it can last for a very long time, and it can really get us into a whirlwind of thoughts and really take us away from what is actually here, where we could really be spending the time much more useful and kindly to really experience, okay, let me just take this to my body, let me become a kind witness. Okay, so sciatica, that's a word that's in the head, but when I say sciatica, what does that actually feel like in the body? Okay, it feels like there's sort of a shooting nerve pain going down my left butt, down my leg. I'm really tensing up just thinking about it, and just really allowing the body to just relax more around it, to say, okay, I'm here to just notice what it feels like in the body, and I'm going to infuse it with a loving attention that I can bring to it. So yeah, I wish I could just call on all of your wisdom, and
Yeah.
maybe when we have the next session, we can do that. But what do you think, Linda,
I,
as you're
it,
listening?
I do so appreciate your point of not making the mind my enemy.
Mm,
Like it's me squaring off against my mind. Good point on that. And I think, as you know, the mind is part of the body, but over dwelling in my mind, which I did most of my life, um, I can say, okay, so that's good, but let's now go down here and see what's going on as far as how we're feeling about all that. I think I could develop a technique around not so much squaring the mind away like on punishment, but just saying, okay, good information. Now dropping down to see what my experience of that is, and then transition
mhm,
more smoothly.
mhm.
I think that offers me a good technique that I could work on.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure this is like the student that came to the monk and said, oh, every time I get situated in meditation, my mind begins to wander. And he said, oh my goodness, you're the first student I've ever had say that. You know, it's just so incredibly true.
Yeah.
Of course we do that. That's in part why we're meditating, right?
Mm,
You know, of
mhm.
course we do that. So,
Yeah.
but thank you. That's a very good instruction, and I appreciate it.
And I also just wanted to add one more thing, Linda. When you were just doing this thing with your hands, I was thinking about how we practice a body scan this evening, but we practice it from the soles of the feet up. So if you feel like everything is here when you're starting in your meditation, you might actually begin your sits with a body scan, but from the top down, and that can really maybe help you settle in to, okay, here it starts here. I can notice everything that's activated there, and then slowly drop it down through the body. And it can be very concentrating and opening, maybe helping the mind open up as you slowly let the awareness travel down. And you might even notice that by the time you get all the way down to your feet, that there's a lot less activity in the mind. It's possible. So it might be worth an
Good idea.
experiment.
I
Yeah.
can see that happening. It's
Yeah.
almost like the qigong exercise where you're bringing the chi down to the dantian, and
Right.
so it isn't all just crazy up in your head.
Yeah.
I think that is a companion technique that could be very useful. So, thank you
Great.
again. Again, thank you.
Great. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, if there's one more.
I have a question, Bettina, but I don't know if it's Erica. Hi.
Hi, Erica.
I don't know if it's kind of a little, I don't know, broad. So when you brought up our body and going through our stages of life and death, and I thought about, I work with babies that die, and so I see babies that have died and they're very young. And so I go to that, and that gives me a sense of gratitude for people who are old and get to live for a long time. But then I also kind of get mad because people are so upset that their 90-year-old grandma died. And I'm just, like, obviously it might be sad for you, but at the same time, think of how much time you've got to spend with these people when some people don't even get 2 days of life. So it's kind of put a lot into perspective of life and death for me in, a really deep, meaningful way that maybe some other people couldn't see. But I think even in a practice like this with all of you guys who don't see babies die have a great sense of life and what it means. But I think that comes from having a mindfulness practice and gratitude and stuff like that. So my question kind of is, and it came back to also when you were talking about the Dharma, the Sangha, and the Buddha, do you think that mindfulness practice and a gratitude practice will ever become something mainstream where you can actually, like, if I didn't have this Sangha with you guys, then I would have no refuge in a Sangha, you know, because there's so little people practicing mindfulness. And so I guess my question is, like, do you ever see mindfulness being taught at a broad spectrum for more people to join and actually practice this? Like, the world needs a practice like this. And so I guess I'm just wondering if you see it kind of, you know, becoming more than what it is in our baby Sangha world, bigger picture wise. So more people have the gratitude practices that we all have, and a bigger Sangha.
Yeah, I think that in many ways, Erica, it's already happening. I think it is being brought to many more communities. I think there's still a very long way to go, as you know, this is not related to the babies dying. And so I'm kind of struggling with what part of your comments I want to answer first. I mean, certainly, just even a sense of gratitude that we're alive at all and that life is just really seemingly unfair. We could talk about, well, maybe that baby, had a certain karma and that's why it only has a short lifespan. And I think that's really inappropriate, to say that in that moment, but just having gratitude for our own lives. But I mean, there's so much that goes into what you were just, raising about, a baby dying, and how
Sorry.
how can we actually be with it other than maybe sharing a moment of silence and deep sadness that is happening, and in terms of broadening, making mindfulness become more of mainstream life or making it more accessible to different communities. I have a lot to say about that. I'm actually quite passionate about it because, as most of you know, or maybe you don't know, I mean, meditation, Buddhism, those types of spiritual practices have been around in the United States for a long time. And yet they have really mostly attracted certain groups of people. And I'm thinking here in particular, it's been the majority of sanghas and meditation centers and retreats that have been offered to mostly white people. And so there could be a question, well, maybe it's just because Black people or brown people are not interested in joining meditation. What we've been finding out about that is that it's not that at all, that we might not actually feel comfortable in those spaces if we're not white. So it's not enough to just say, well, everyone is welcome. It reminds me of in the past working for a social service agency. And she always said, well, I have an open door policy, the executive director, you can always come to me with a question. And so it's one thing to have an open door policy, but how are you actually supporting this open door policy so that people will join in, so that people will actually come through her door? And then it might be a question, well, maybe only certain people will come through the door, but others don't really come. And what are the reasons that they don't come? So I think there's a lot of questions that go into, a lot of aspects that go into this question that you're raising. And so when you're saying mainstream, you might have maybe something totally different in mind. When I'm hearing you say mainstream, I'm sensing, when is it going to become more broadly available to all kinds of communities? Is that what you're saying, or what is your definition?
I know that we have a short time, and so I got my question in late, and sorry about I talk about babies because it's natural to me, but I understand that it might be heavy for a group. But I guess meaning, like, when will we start at a base level? I mean, this should be teachings that we're giving out to kids at a young age and, you know, moving on from there. Like, I'm just saying, do you ever think it's going to be like almost like the standard of life? Like, are we going to teach our young children that this, like, from a stage of infancy and up, like all of us? And could it ever be like that? I guess a utopia type situation that we would be all starting mindfulness practices. I mean, we're starting late in age. Is it ever going to come to where we're really starting at a prime age of where it could really help us for the future, I guess?
Mm-hmm. You know, there's actually, and it's been around for quite some time now. There's actually a teacher training to teach mindfulness in the schools. And I think it's actually become quite big around the country, just like, you know, teaching mindfulness in prisons has kind of spread over the years. So I think it's not so much utopia. It just takes more people to join in, Erica. For example, you could be offering you've been a practitioner for many years. You have a whole lot to offer. So I think it just takes a community to come together, more people to join in to offer these teachings. And it doesn't require for you to go through a teacher training for you to be able to maybe offer a group among your coworkers, to offer a support mindfulness practice at your place of work. You don't have to go through a lengthy training. I mean, you have so much experience, and I think it just takes a lot of people in different communities to come together and to have a desire to offer this, to see how beneficial it is. So yeah, I think it's not utopia. I think it's actually happening as we speak, more and more and more and more. If you think about how yoga used to be, when Z started teaching yoga 20 years ago, it was actually, I remember their story. It was actually so rare, yoga in San Diego, that they actually went to Horton Plaza and passed out flyers. This is what yoga is, like a definition of yoga. And so I think sort of mindfulness is sort of following in that direction, where it's becoming quite popular all around because so many people see the benefits of it. So,
thank you. That makes me happy.
Yeah, makes me happy too. Thank you for asking. So we went a couple of minutes over, but why don't we just end our practice time together as a community, just by dropping into our seat one more time, dropping into our body. And maybe just honoring everybody's wisdom, honoring what everybody has shared this evening. Maybe not in words if you didn't speak up, but just by simply being here with us, being willing to engage in this experiment together. And the word gratitude has been mentioned a few times. So see if you can generate a sense of gratitude within yourself that there's a group that has come together, even if it's just for a short time, but a group that sees the value in practicing meditation and mindfulness together. And how enriching and nourishing the experience hopefully is for your body and mind. And perhaps we can send out the wish as we end our practice time together that there may be more and more communities in the world where people come together to practice mindfulness, to practice with one another in a way that is non-harming, that is affirming of everyone's life, of everyone's being and interbeing. So sending out the wish into the world for all beings to be free from suffering, for all beings to be free from inner and outer harm, and for all beings to be free. Thank you so much for your presence and for your willingness to be here, to ask even some questions this evening. I know that in itself can take a lot of courage, so thank you for doing that. And please rest well tonight. Allow your body to sleep if it needs to go to sleep. And hope to see you again next Monday. Thank you.